Tyler, how the hell are you, man?
Good, thanks. Good to see you, Jordan.
Good to see you. It's not as good as getting around the kitchen table and playing a game as we have done in global pandemic times, but
I
it's
know
good.
everything is an exercise and adaptation right now, including the gaming. Tabletop simulator has gotten some definite use right now, I think, with a lot of people, right? Because it's the closest you can get to being around the table.
It is, but and we are here to talk about a couple of games. One that you're working on, and one that Zach and Ryan and myself are about to put out.
Yeah.
And there are extremely vague but potential connections in terms of
Yeah.
approach to a couple of things. But yeah, tell me about the DLC that you guys are going to put out soon.
Yeah, sure. So we just recently announced the Butcher's Circus, it's called, which is a new DLC for Darkest Dungeon 1. And before I say anything else, let me just say, yes, we're still working on Darkest Dungeon 2. Production hasn't slowed. We actually hired more people so that we could do both, so we can walk and chew gum at the same time. But the Butcher Circus, yeah, we announced kind of as a joke on April Fool's, and we confirmed it was actually real the next day. We've been working on it for about a year, and it's a PvP arena for Darkest Dungeon. So kind of you can build a team of 4 heroes like you normally do, but this time you send them into the ring and battle against another human or a bot, their team of 4 heroes, and you battle to the death. So it's totally different experience from
Yeah,
the usual.
it is very different. But I mean, the combat was so fun in the kind of the way that you had the determine your line dynamics and the rest of it. So it should be pretty interesting from a PvP standpoint.
Yeah, we've had the bug to experiment with it for quite a while, and certainly people in the community have occasionally, expressed interest in either co-op or PvP. And the idea of trying that combat against another human just sounded really interesting to explore. So we actually, as we got into it, we had to make some adjustments mechanically that really only work in for PvP. The way we're handling initiative, for example, some other things which I won't totally give away, but it's been fun. Yeah, it's been fun to explore, and I hope people dig it.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they will. And Sea of Legends, which is what we've been working on, which is this tabletop pirate frolic, I guess. I'll use
You had me at all three. Yeah, for
that
sure.
term. Also has an app that we get into a lot of interactive storytelling, and the kind of assemble a team like we do in our game, where you've got a captain, a lover, a nemesis is kind of your core team, and then you add crew members to that, and you have kind of a PvP dynamic. Of course, you're trying to be the most notorious pirate, but also a PvE, because there's these giant kind of world events that are taking place. Something
Oh yeah.
mundane like the British trying to take over, or something very exotic like zombie conquistadors trying to take over the Caribbean. So you do have that kind of PVE and PvP going on at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I like the sound of that in terms of, like, I love the whole pirate theme. I mean, that's what interested me a ton right off the bat, just because I guess, like, when you boil something down to, I love that mission of trying to get the old Errol Flynn sort of swashbuckling movie feel of trying to do glorious things, have grand adventures, the Johnny Depp sort of thing, as opposed to the real Age of Piracy, which sounded pretty awful. But it's
Yes,
kind
exactly.
of, but the Hollywood or game version is so much fun, and I've got a definite soft spot for that theme in particular.
Yeah, well, we were playing through it last week with you virtually, as we are
Yeah,
now. It really, it was great to see your face light up on just some of the play dynamics and some of the interactive storytelling that
yeah.
seemed to hit your fancy.
Yeah, well, I like right away. I think the way you've structured it with having a lover and a nemesis is a cool way to just, like, ensure some interesting, like, intrigue per game. I think, like, the emergent and sort of procedural storytelling is something that, like, it's kind of like the white whale a little bit for everybody. But what interested me here in terms of, like, I think a lot of people want to do it, but it's very difficult to do well. And I thought it was really cool that within a board game, you could kind of really set those structures really firmly, like, you know, the three acts and the lover and the nemesis. And so that made sense that it could actually work mechanically versus kind of, I think, certainly on the video game side, I think a lot of people try to do procedural narrative and it just ends up all over because it's a really massive thing to tackle. But this made tons of sense and sounds really fun.
Well, and we're super excited that you, offered to write a story or two, and then surprisingly, like knocked out a great one over a weekend and sent it to us. We were super excited about that.
Well, I appreciate it. It's definitely an honor to be asked to contribute to the game. You know, just I was also impressed how far along you guys are in the process. Obviously, the Kickstarter's coming up. So between, I guess, like the team, yourself, and everyone else working on it, and then, you know, the pedigree and then the theme, I was like happy to dive in. And then little known factoid is the first published fiction I ever had was a zombie themed pirate short story. And so that just hit a little personal interest as well. The story I wrote isn't zombie themed, but I love that that's in the game. And so, yeah, it's super fun. The first thing that
you want any teasers about the story that you did wrote?
Yeah,
it wasn't wrote by any means. It was very unique. It wasn't wrote.
Yeah, I guess I had Errol Flynn on the brain in terms of, again, that kind of like the romanticized part of the whole pirate, myth, and and I always have love on the brain. So I think right there, since you have the lover mechanic built into the game and a nemesis mechanic, it's just something just taking advantage of that within the theme of the kind of the British nobles coming over and establishing land and then trying to make something of themselves over there, and still a little bit of the old world French and British kind of like but in the new world search for love. So I thought just doing something along those lines.
I love the way that the story, took us off of the decks of ships and into the ballrooms and bedrooms of the nobles. That was really fun.
Yeah, well, I figured. I mean, also there was so much good stuff there in terms of your theme with, got a sneak peek at like the monster packs and things like that. So I thought, I would skew a little bit more just kind of straight, because I think there's a lot of like cool stuff in the works with that. So yeah, it was fun to play around. And as far as just jumping right on it, I was doing some work on a Saturday and I was like, this would be fun to just hop tracks for a couple hours, just to try to have a nice creative exercise. So that was fun.
Yeah, well, we really appreciate it, and I'm sure the players will enjoy diving into a different side of Tyler's storytelling than they've seen recently in Darkest Dungeon. I don't think anybody goes crazy in the story you wrote, so that's different right there.
You need a palate cleanser. I think Chris, who's the creative director on Darkest Dungeon, has done such an awesome job of like setting up that world, and then we try to pay off that, just the crushing, the darkness, the stress, all that all the time. So yeah, it's kind of nice to hop over and feel like you're writing a few scenes from an Errol Flynn movie. It's a nice break. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think especially in today's tone of world that we're in, a little lighthearted adventure is a nice relief from the actual world we live in as well. So.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I think we've thought about that even in terms of when Darkest Dungeon was inspired. I think when things are going relatively okay in the world, it's a little more fun to do the escapism into the apocalyptic stuff. I think when you're kind of living it, it's a little more fun to jump into the storybooks maybe.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for contributing story and taking time to talk to us about your thoughts on what you found exciting in Sea of Legends, and it's super great to be able to touch base on what's happening in the Butcher's Arena, which sounds very exciting. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. The Butcher launches in May, so depending on when you post this video, it's all gonna be pretty close. So I'm excited. Yeah. We go live May 5th, so this video will either come out like the week before or like a couple weeks before. Yeah. So great. Well, from what I saw, the production value and everything, I'm super stoked to see. Yeah, I mean the art and the sculpts and aside from the mechanics and the stuff that obviously
interested me, just the look and feel of it all. So I think it's going to do well. I'm excited.
I hope so. Thank you so much, and appreciate your time. And
yeah, my pleasure.
We will look forward to seeing you virtually or physically sometime soon.
Sounds good, Jordan.
All right.
Bye.